Hello, I'm Madeleine Hughes, and for my final project for Linguistics 136, I looked at the different uses of African American English in the culinary world. I wanted to investigate if black chefs in a fine dining restaurant use more or less or different African American English than do black chefs specializing in more casual food fare. I hypothesized that the participants would identify Max Hardy, the Detroit chef, as sounding blacker due to his more southern-style speech, exaggerated pitch, slight drawl, and physical expression that is more evident than Eduardo Jordan's. Chef Max Hardy comes from Detroit, Michigan. Originally, he was working as a private chef, but left his field to create food more accessible to all. I chose to use Max Hardy as one of my AAE speakers because he is a successful chef who is passionate about serving all people of any class, race, socio-economic status, etc., and his cooking represents a more casual style of food. Chef Eduardo Jordan, on the other hand, is an American chef based in Seattle, Washington. He grew up in Florida and attended the Orlando Culinary Academy, where he quickly rose up the culinary chain to work at notable fine dining restaurants. Both Chef Max Hardy and Chef Eduardo Jordan use devaluation, dehaudization, consonant cluster reduction, and medial unstressed syllable deletion, as well as initial stress in both their videos.
Here, one of my favorite places, the Eastern Market, Cutters. When I'm not cooking, I come by here and have great food, have a good drink, just kick back and enjoy myself and unwind from a crazy day of cooking. So, welcome to Cutters. Come on in. Let's have a good time.
Having a grill. That night was a blur now. But yeah, I mean, I think, what was accomplished, it's for the history books, but hopefully, we're building on the future with what was accomplished that evening.
In your acceptance speech,
I found that Jordan uses similar amounts of phonological African American English patterns in his speech as compared to Hardy, but his tone, pitch, and expression are not as exaggerated as Chef Hardy's. This is why I predict that even though both Hardy and Jordan use similar phonological patterns of African American English, participants will choose Hardy as sounding more black because of his tone and the context of the situation. I think the fact that Eduardo Jordan is a fine dining chef being interviewed by a group of white people will give participants the assumption that he uses less African American English than Hardy does. To test my hypothesis, I created a Google Doc and made 7 copies for each of my 7 participants. The document stated the purpose of the study and the directions in watching both clips and then answering 2 questions. The video links were attached and stated the timestamps for watching each clip. Then the questions that followed were: which speaker sounded blacker to you? And what characteristics made the speaker sound more black? The data showed that all 7 participants thought Chef Max Hardy sounded blacker. The reasons for why people chose Hardy were pretty similar, with mention of his use of slang, his more casual tone, and abbreviations or shorter versions of words. Some comments that stood out to me from the data was the mention of how Chef Hardy didn't use correct grammar all the time. This relates to what we have learned in class. People often assume that African American English is not proper grammar, and that is why we are taught what is meant to be correct grammar in school and society. But in reality, there is nothing incorrect about Hardy's grammar. His use of African American English allows him to shorten words and have abbreviations that still carry the same meaning as the word in standard English. Most participants referred to these abbreviations and shortening of words as slang, which also shows how most people are unaware of the phonological aspects of African American English and the terms that encompass the language. I assumed participants would make comments stating that Hardy sounded less formal, more casual, and used more slang because he shortened his words. I had these assumptions because I was aware that all my participants had not taken an African American linguistics course and knew very little information on the language. But having the ability to understand the different aspects of African American English will encourage people to not consider the language as less superior to standard English. Instead, it will promote that both languages are correct, even though they are slightly different. The more people become educated on Black culture and educate themselves on the history of African American English, the stronger our society can become at dismantling racist ideals behind language.